and welcome to Developer Diary 7 for Conflicts of Eriador. It has been a very long time since the last update video for Conflicts of Eriador, so this one will be considerably longer. As you can see on the screen, we have a full array of faction icons created for us by WK, and they are astonishingly beautiful in my opinion. Going around from Angmar, at the top on the right, we then have Gundabad, the Misty Mountains. No, that's not the Misty Mountains, that's... Ooh, which one is that? That might be Goblin Town. Then we have the Misty Mountains. Then we have the Gwathirian tribes, Dunland, the Ar Adunaim, which will be an invasion faction, the Dowerhand dwarves, the clans of Ered I believe. Oh no, that's Khazad Dûm. You can see that I've done my research for this, of course. Then the clans of Ered our only elven faction, the Noldorin Realms. The Patriarchate of Saraline is the Ram's Head, then the Ice Tribes of Lossuth, and finally we come on to the Dunedain factions, or the factions that have some affiliation with the Dunedain. Cardolan, Rudar... Oh no, that's Breland. Rudar, Cardolan, and Arthedain. We have separated the Dunedain of the North into two factions, Cardolan and Arthedain. Rudar is the Hillmen, but they can regain their heritage and turn against Angmar. The faction icons are courtesy of WK, as I said earlier, but the logo in the centre, which has been around for a while, was made by White in the Black Cloud. We've also got a bunch of renders for units done by Reaper. The unit models for Angmar are also done by Reaper. And we have on the left the Black Watch of Angmar and the Barad Heleg Chosen, I believe is their name, but that may change. Agandar's bodyguard, essentially. And the Black Watch are the most elite infantry unit Angmar can field. On the right we have the Dark Rangers, which are simply the Dark Blades from Divide and Conquer, but made much cooler. The Barrow-wights and Witch Knights, which are Angmar's generic bodyguard on the right. The Barrow-wights, which is a render done by Coma, is perhaps the best render I have seen. It really brings out the best of these units. In the centre is Hunvorn, the Lord of the Barrow-wights, the most powerful of them. And you can tell because he has a very nice crown on his head. And 3 gold medallions instead of just the 1. The Thrall Masters of Angmar. These force the wretched Angmarim orcs into battle and boost their morale so they do not run away. They are very few in number, and though armor piercing should not be thrown into melee combat unless you absolutely must. Because if they die, your orcs will rout immediately, or almost immediately. Speaking of the orcs, model again by Reaper, as have been all previous models. Save the Black Watch, which are sort of a modified unit, I think, from Coma. These are the Angmar orcs. The Borvorbat, I think, is their tribal name, but we shall see that when there is something very special done soon, which I will talk more on at the end of this video. Rudarim units, done by Reaper and renders also by Reaper. We have here the general model for Rudar in the centre, which is very, very nice, and his bannermen on the sides. 2 variations. I think there may be more variations, but those are not shown. Then we have the Warlord's Vanguard on the left here, which are the most elite unit Rudar can field, and also the bodyguard of their starting lord. The Coldfell Marauders are just a brutal 2-handed sword unit. You don't want to get in their way, because those cleavers will have absolutely no problem taking your head off. Mountaineers and Brigands I have put under the Rudar section, though that is not where they come from, they are just mercenary units, and will be featuring in the rebel armies. The Mountaineers are a javelin and axe unit, by the looks of it, and the Bandits are mace and shield or sword and shield. They are not armor-piercing, the Brigands. Mountaineers may well be. Then we come on to something that I've been working on in recent months, the story scripts. For Lossos, this is also the Palantir script. And you can choose to either give the stone, because there is only one Palantir that you can discover, not two. You can choose to either give that Palantir to the Dunedain, which is how the majority of the script chains will end, or you can give it to Angmar, either of which path will give you a new unit, which will be very much needed for the Lossos. They do not have much, by the way, of medium or even definitely not heavy and barely any medium infantry. They are a light skirmish faction, because where would they get the resources? Or you can try and use the Palantir yourself. And this is very risky, because your faction leader can just straight up die. There will be battles in many places for this, so be careful, is all I will say. And then the Khazad-dûm story script, part 1 of 2. This one is much longer. Khazad-dûm is one of the factions with the longest script. And it's all about the second war of dwarves and the orcs. You have to push the Moryad orcs out of Khazad-dûm itself, and then the tunnels through the mountains beneath them. This is very likely to result in an attack by the Balrog, and by very likely, I mean it is certain to. You also get many custom generals through this script, all of which are named after the few named dwarves from Balin's company, which were, of course, Balin, Ori and Oin. Then there was Floy, then Gnarly, Onar, and a few others which I cannot remember off the top of my head. But yes, you get some very strong custom generals through this script. If you are defeated by the orcs from the first battle, then you can choose to gain Ori as a general, but you will not get him as a diplomat, and he will be... generals are better than diplomats. I may change up this section, because currently it's possibly more beneficial to lose the battle than to win it. Yeah, I'll definitely do some more with this section here. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but that is from where it says Major Goblin Army attacks from the depths of the mountains tunnel sections to keep pushing back orcs northward and deeper through the tunnels. That section is likely to change. After you have killed the Balrog and got this lovely general with Valrorkar's Bane, perhaps the best dwarven unit in the game, in this mod, not just for Khazad-dûm, possibly, there will start a second script where Gundabad and Goblin Town start harrying you, and you have to force your way up the mountains to reclaim the sacred peak of Gundabad. This script is not complete, which is why there's only a small section of it appearing currently. Then we come on to Dunland, a faction that Bill has been working on, and these renders are by Reaper, but the models are done by Bill, and they are very nice. The Brehen's Sword Wielders are a powerful unit, but not your best units. They are mid-tier. They will be good, but they will not be amazing. Feud Keepers are unbreakable strike infantry, but they will also die very quickly. They are armor-piercing because of those massive clubs, some of which are spiked. There is a bunch of lore behind these units that Bill has written, and I will cover in their own video when the roster is done completely. Then we have the Dunnish Spearmen, Sputermen, which I believe is has Germanic origins, that word. They are pikes and normal spears. But the pikes, I believe, will have shield wall instead of the spear wall ability, which makes them very deadly, so they will have almost no attack. But they will be able to kill a ridiculous amount of things even so. And the Durfol men, using weapons that I don't quite recognise. Those are probably Durfolds. I'm sure Bill will correct me in the comments because I'm definitely annoying him with not knowing what they are. And I should have done the research before this video, but oh well, I don't have the time to go back and re-record this. And now we come on to the faction roster reveals. There are 5 factions whose rosters I feel comfortable in revealing because they are not likely to change, and they are the Dauerhand, whose strengths are high armor, high attack, and lots of fear-causing units, but they have very low numbers and poor morale until you get to the high tiers, because these are the greedy dwarves. They would prefer to run away and keep their lives and their hordes than to fight to the death, even if to fight to the death would be better for the faction. These dwarves are unique in that they do not have a purely dwarven roster. I'm sure you can see the battle trolls down in the AOR section, but that is not it. The Dushuk Baram are sort of their vassal tribe of humans, of middlemen, that they have equipped. They will not do a lot of damage. They will not survive very long. Their sole purpose is to be a filler unit. Because the Ozith, your first Dauerhand units, they're not very numerous. The Dauerhand are the least numerous of the Dwarven factions. None of their high tiers or mid tiers, these are not going to be able to fill armies. Their regiment size will be about equal with other Dwarven equivalent tiered units, but you will be able to recruit fewer of them, much slower. So you will be relying on the Dushuk Baram for a considerable amount of time. They also have terrible ranged units until the high tiers. The Dushuk Baram archers aren't going to do much. Ozith axe wielders with their javelins will do some things, but the best unit you're going to be having for range is definitely the Kazukan shield breakers. Their crossbows will be very useful. Then we come on to their area of recruitment units, and we have the Ekeluz Izimun Shimmerbeards. These unit names were made by Bill. He was using Neokuzdul, I think, from somewhere online that I do not know where is, or I'd use it for the other Dwarven factions as well, perhaps. The Shimmerbeards are their most powerful infantry unit, and they get two-handed axes with armor piercing. They also have very good armor, of course. The models for these units are not yet done, I think, but we do have preliminary models for the Ozith and Kazukan that I'm not sharing yet, because they are going to change, I believe. The Sarkuhazash Forge Brethren are going to be very useful and also unique in the mod for being the only unit to wield fire with their naphtha bombs. And finally we come to the Dauerhand Battle Trolls. You don't want to get in their way. They can break. They won't be unbreakable. They will have decent morale, but these are going to be armoured trolls. They will be the bread and butter of your army. They will kill pretty much anything. And finally, the Bodyguard. Uzmalyukyan. Yeah, I can't pronounce that very well. They're your standard sword and shield, heavily armoured dwarven noblemen. Then we come on to Cardalon, which is split in 3 ways. We've tried to get rid of the tiers of units to an extent for most factions. Cardalon is one of these. Instead of having a tier of barracks that you build and it just keeps adding more units that are better than the ones you had before, you have to choose in every region. You can build a barracks for either the Prince's Levies, which are your standard units. They are good but not great, or one of the earldoms, Girithlin, Caladir, or the Tirn Gorthad. These are good at different things. Caladir is the most numerous, and they have some decent skirmish capabilities, plus pikes. Pikes are very nice. Girithlin are better armoured and better equipped. They're sort of the middle ground between Caladir and the Tirn Gorthad, who are the most well-equipped but also the least numerous. And Girithlin is also where you get most of your armour-piercing units. Crossbows are the order of the day for Girithlin, and they have some very nice ones. Girithlin Arbalests are a hybrid unit and one that you will want as much as possible. These elite units can be recruited from the earldoms, but only within the earldom itself. You can't build, say, the Girithlin barracks in Dunland and expect to get Girithlin Arbalests. You can only get those in the 2 or 3 regions that are classed as Girithlin. Caladir is also the only place that you can get cavalry, so be wary of that. The Tirn Gorthad are using the troves of treasure from the Barrow Downs, and these are your best units. But they are also your least numerous units, and, more importantly, your slowest replenishing units. If you were to just build Tirn Gorthad barracks everywhere, you would have a very powerful army. But it would not be a very large army, and if you lost any units, that would be a problem. There's only one area of recruitment unit currently for the Cardalan faction, which is the Tharbad Bridge Guard, which are essentially just a halberd version of Divide and Conquer's Bridge Guard, which are pikes. They will have a much better model, though. And the generic bodyguard is Prince's Retainers. You will get some custom bodyguard people with the elite units. But more on that in Cardalan's video, which will be whenever we have models for them. Then we have the Noldorin Realms roster. Version 5. We've gone through a lot of variations for these. We are going to be using the engine overhaul project so we can have bodyguards spawn that are not the general bodyguard, based on traits. That is the main reason we're using the engine overhaul project. And the Noldorin Realms have a lot of bodyguard units. The standard Noldor bodyguard, the Eldarinwe Arquen, will be your sword and board heavy armour. These units will have a very low number of soldiers, probably about 20 soldiers. We have the as yet unnamed Sindarin bodyguards, which are axe throwers, and the Lintirise Nakir Lim, which are spear and shield light armour. Lindar bodyguard, as they are mariners. You don't want heavy armour on board a ship when it could sink. Then custom bodyguards, Etiangol Makar Lare, which I'm not certain is correct, Quenya. I came up with this name. It is something like Golden Warriors of the Exiles, in essence, is that name. They are basically the Noldorin Guard from Divide and Conquer version 3, and earlier, but with two-handed swords instead of spear and shield. Then we have Glorfindel's bodyguard, the Roqueni Loralmo, Knights of the Golden Flower. They're just exceptional cavalry, definitely the best cavalry unit in the game. And the Company of Light, the Johanail Carlior for Gildor Inglorion. Then we have the Lindar units, which will only be available in Linden. Every single unit in the Noldorin Realms roster is very restricted in recruitment. You won't be able to recruit anything outside of Linden or Ebregion, except the Johanail Carlior from Woody End in the Shire. Nothing else will be available anywhere outside of these regions. You will have to rely on mercenaries. That's just the way you're going to have to play this game, I'm afraid. We will allow replenishment outside of your core regions, but not recruitment. Anyway, the Lindar have got Lindar Mariners, which are more mariner peoples, sword, shield, javelins. Solid unit. Lindar will be your your worst units stat-wise, but they have the most soldiers, which will be very important. Numbers are needed. You won't be able to just recruit in a bunch of Noldor and expect to win every battle. The Lindar Shore Guard are just archers with a spear. They will be good archers, all elves. All elven archers will be very good, but they won't be amazing. The Harbour Watch of the Havens are a pike and tiny little shield unit. They can hold pretty much anything off. I think this is also your only pike unit. Then we have the Riders of the Hither Shore, your only readily available cavalry unit. They're just spear and shield cavalry. Not bad, not great. The Sindar Gate Wardens are throwing axes and axe and shield, very much like your bodyguard, except they are better with their axes than... I might actually need to change up the bodyguard of the Sindar. Yeah, I think I will. Can't have all bodyguards being shielded units. I think I'll replace them with two-handed axes, the Sindar bodyguard. And the Sindar are Irk Slayers, the Orc Slayers, which are just two-handed axes. Maybe not then. I'll come up with something, don't worry. Then we come to the Noldor, who are available only in Imladris, Eregion, Mistland and Tolhimring. They have 2 units, the Sword Singers and the Guardians, both of which will be relentless. Anything with an R in brackets is a relentless unit and cannot be staggered, so they will just keep on killing, something they will be very good at. Then the special units, the area of recruitment units. The Gwaithir Myrthain will be your weakest non-Lindar unit, because they're just smiths. Not like the Gwaithir Angruin, which will be your strongest infantry unit, I think. Possibly equivalent with Sword Singers. And they will be incredibly defensive, the most heavily armoured unit in the game, with well over 40 defence. They are going to be absolute monsters and nearly impossible to take down without siege equipment. Bowmasters of Eregion will be available in Eregion, unsurprisingly, and in Imladris as well, most likely, and they're just two-handed sword. They're your rangers, really. They can hide, and they will be very good with their bows. Less good with their swords, but still dangerous. Imladris Rangers are your only other recruitable cavalry unit than the Riders of the Hither Shore, coming from Imladris and their horse archers. And finally, a recruitable custom bodyguard, the Kirin Gwinglos, Mariners of Vingilot, the ship of Earendil the Mariner. They will be very powerful, but their armour stat will be low. They are the bodyguard of Círdan, the shipwright. 2 more rosters to reveal, Arthedain and Rudar. Starting with Rudar, I think, because it's smaller. We have the Warlord's Chosen, a standard bodyguard. The militia are the Munantain, or Hillmen. And they are just variations on your standard old Hillmen. Axe and shield, pike, bow and axe. Spear, shield and javelin cavalry. Then we have the Chieftains, Warriors, Huskarls and Warband. Something you're probably noticing is a relative lack of good archers, or long-ranged units. You have only the Munantine archers, which aren't very good at all, or axe throwers or javelin throwers. This is very much intentional. Rudar relies on its powerful infantry much more than its archers. Their only high-tier unit is the Warlord's Vanguard, but then we come to the choice, and they can choose between siding with Angmar and gaining access to a very violent clan of the Hillmen, the Volsegi, or siding with the Dunedain and having the far-wandering Dunedain, the Hyranadain, return to Rudar, their rightful home. Siding with Angmar gives you another high-tier unit, the Volsegi Folksmen, which are brutal. The Volsegi Raiders, another cavalry unit. Skull Takers, which are regular infantry. Warstaffs, which are pikemen. Farseers, which are a good archer, not an amazing archer, but very good for Hillmen. The Dunedain will give you the Hyranadain, which are just solid infantry, an amazing archer unit for Hillmen, because they're not Hillmen, they're Dunedain, and a good cavalry unit. Plus Rangers. Rangers are always nice. Then we come to their script, another script, which is a troll incursion script, because they live in the Ettenmoors, the Troll Hill, the Troll Shore. And so they have a custom unit that's very, very good at killing trolls, with their spear and javelins. This will be the most effective unit at killing trolls in the game. They'll have high attack with their spear, very low defense, so they will die quite a lot. But they will be able to kill the trolls quickly. Special units, which are just AOR, are the Coldfell Hunters and the Highfell Berserkers. Coldfell Hunters, this is an outdated roster. Those are now the Coldfell Marauders, which you saw earlier. And Arthedain, of course. We are, again, having some custom bodyguards. We have the Wardens of the North, your standard bodyguard, sword or axe, and steel bow. Custom bodyguards, a Lesser's Guard. That is very important to note, will not be in the game at the start. Aragorn is going to be in the game at the start, but he will start with Wardens of the North, and then become a Lesser's Guard when some scripts have been completed. The Grey Company will remain in the game, but they will be archers now, under Halbarad of the North. Then we have the houses, which will only be coming into effect when Arthedain has been reformed. The Oiomeriel Men-at-Arms, Tanakostar Nobles, and Emeriar Borderers. They are going to be bodyguard units primarily, I think, for some special generals. The low tier is the only unit you'll be able to recruit for a fair while into the game, but that's not a problem because they're very good. Dunedain Rangers, basically the same as in Divide and Conquer. Striders, which are basically Dunedain Wardens from Divide and Conquer, but they'll be a bit more dangerous. And Dunedain Scouts, where we have replaced the Horse Archer from Divide and Conquer with a Javelin Cavalry unit. The mid-tier, Arthedain's infantry, will be solid infantry. You don't want to get on their bad side, but they won't be incredibly good. They will be solid, but they won't do too much. The high tier is where it really comes into effect. North Kingdom Retainers are your best infantry unit, save one that we will discuss in a minute. The King's Steel Bowmen are essentially the steel bows from Divide and Conquer, and the Royal Knights are your best cavalry unit, and possibly the second most powerful cavalry unit in the game. Perhaps tied with the Black Watch of Angmar's cavalry variant, Guardians of Karn Doom. Area of recruitment for Arthedain are the Fornost Orion Defenders, which are pikemen, and the Palantir Guard of Anuminas, which are spear and shields. Both units that are fairly lacking throughout... Well, not really. You have a bunch of spearmen, but these are better. And after you have reunified Arnor, which is a script that we have not fully decided the course of yet, you will be able to get the Telcontar Household Guard, which is a mix of Dunedain and elves. The Bodyguard of Eldarion. And finally, we come to the model of the Witch King, given to us generously by the Heirs of Elendil team. And the purpose of this video, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, well done to Helios on Izzy's Discord server for his dedication. And Reaper, who is the lead of the team now, asked me to record this developer diary on this day, specifically so that I can announce a battle between the 3 or 4 factions that we will have ready very shortly, the Elves, Dunland, Rudar, and Angmar. This will be recorded with myself, Izzy, Accounting for Games, and Sir Orgemund if all 4 factions are done in time. If not, it'll just be Izzy, Sir Orgemund, and Accounting for Games. Thank you all for watching this video, if indeed you have, and I'll see you next time. Go on, Assault, over.